Are you with us? All right. So today, my only official role before we get started is to call this meeting to order, do the roll call, and then I'm just going to go straight to the election of the chair and the vice chair. And then whoever is elected as chair will take over. And then I'm just going to be here in my capacity as an assembly member. So with that, do you mind, since you have it, can you just hit the gavel? All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this first meeting of the Houseless Lived Experience Advisory Board to order. We are noticed today, November 20th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. here at City Hall, room 155. Let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Member Griffiths. Present. Member Platt.
Yes, ma'am.
Member Shanigan.
Present.
Member Short. Member Trainer. Member Gorman.
Present.
Member Evans.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the election under new business. Item A, elect chair and vice chair. So the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to open up nominations for chair, and then we'll have that election, and then open up nominations for vice chair. We'll have that election. If there are more than one nomination, then we'll paper ballot vote, which will be counted by the clerk. Otherwise, if there's just one nomination, I'll just ask for unanimous consent and then move forward from there. So with that, I'll go ahead and open up any nominations for chair.
I nominate myself.
Okay, are there any other nominations?
I nominate.
Okay, are there any other nominations?
I nominate Terrence Shanigan.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? All right, seeing no nominations, we have 3 individuals who have been nominated. Gorman, and I'm sorry, it's Evans. Yeah, okay, Gorman, Evans, and Shanigan. So let's go ahead and pass around the ballots.
And you would just reply only to me in that email. You can vote just to.
Got it. So Terrence, I don't know if you heard that, but if you reply just to the clerk in that email, then she'll be able to count your vote. So don't reply all just to the clerk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have 1 vote for Gorman, 2 votes for Evans, and 2 votes for Shanigan. So we do not have
Okay.
a winner, so we need to do it again.
Yeah. So do you mind if I have a little bit of so I think in a normal Like if we were electing chair, we would take out the lowest vote and then just leave the top two, and then we would redo the vote. You good doing that?
Yeah, if that's past practice, I'm good with that.
Okay. Is there any opposition to that? So we would just take out the individual who had the lowest number of votes and then revote the top two vote getters? Okay. So then the top two vote getters were Evans and Shanigan. So we'll go ahead and vote again with those two names on the ballot. Should be a tie this time. If you want to, yeah.
So this is Evans. I'm okay to defer to Shanigan if everybody's okay with that.
Okay.
I just nominated myself because I didn't hear anybody else say anything.
All right. So that saves us from voting. If there's no opposition to that, then congratulations, Mr. Shanigan. You have been elected the chair. I'll go ahead and conduct the vice chair election, and then I will turn it over to you. Which I know, as someone who's on the phone, might be a little bit difficult. We'll help you out. Okay,
thank
so then, go ahead, Mr. Shanigan.
Oh, I was just saying thank you for that.
All right, so then I'll go ahead and open up nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Evans.
All right, are there any other nominations?
I'll nominate Gorman.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? All right, so then we have two nominations, Member Evans and Member Gorman. We'll go ahead and conduct the vote.
We have 3 votes for Evans and 2 votes for Gorman. So Evans has been elected.
Okay, congratulations, Member Evans, for being elected vice chair. With that, that is the end of my official role here. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chair Shanigan to conduct the rest of the meeting.
All right, thank you. And are we working off the still the same agenda that was handed out?
Yes,
that might be a
Mr.
question
Chair.
for-
Yes, we do have the copies of the agenda in front of us, so that would be great.
Okay. The next item is the commission goals. I just first like to say thank you to everyone for coming to the meeting, and thank you, Assemblyman Rivera, for bringing us all together, and you know, just getting the community in this way. I think it's important. It's a very important group to kind of assemble and start dialogue. I guess I'm not quite sure if the commission has a specific description that someone there can read to our group as we kind of look at and open up this next item. Maybe the clerk, if that's possible, could read what the commission detail is, and then I might ask Assemblyman Rivera if there is any specific like intent or ideas that you see this group sort of working on and addressing? Maybe just give us a little insight into what you kind of think of what this is about as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have pulled up the code site, and apologies, maybe we should have printed these for folks. Is there a way to put it on the screens? Okay. So for folks' reference, the ordinance creating this was Anchorage Ordinance number 2021-76, and the specific code site is 4.60.250, Houseless Lived Experience Advisory Board. So I'm just going to speak to the subsection C under this part of code, and I'll just read it. It's the board shall have the following powers and duties. 1, advise the assembly and mayor on issues, services, and programs regarding homelessness, housing, and related matters from the perspective of those with lived experience in our community. 2, assist the assembly and mayor in conducting educational and public relations programs designed to create public awareness of the needs of those with lived experience in our community. 3, make recommendations to the assembly and mayor regarding policies, practices, and legislation from the perspective of those with lived experience. 4, act as a liaison between those with lived experience and policymakers. 5, conduct regular reviews of the current community plan to end homelessness from the perspective of those with lived experience. And last, 6, to review budget allocations addressing homelessness and support services from the perspective of those with lived experience. So those are the 6 things in the code for which this body is assigned, or I should say has the duties to do. And I guess getting to your question, Mr. Chair, that you asked of anything specific that I had in mind, sort of outside, probably not even outside, within the parameters of those 6 things that I mentioned, excuse me, there are 2 things that the municipality and the community are working towards right now in the next 4 or 5 months that are going to be taking place, which would be helpful to get this board's experience. And those 2 things are, 1, the transition out of emergency cold weather shelter. I'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to item C in our agenda, dates of interest, but every April 30th, we close emergency cold weather shelter. And so it's important from my perspective for the municipality to have a transition plan for how we're going to transition out of emergency cold weather shelter. Because I think, as we have seen the last couple of years, if we don't have a transition plan, then the plan is folks will go wherever, right? Then the second thing that's coming up is the clean slate strategy. So that is an initiative that is led by the Housing and Homelessness Committee to figure out how we want to achieve the goal of adding 150 additional year-round low barrier shelter beds, permanent shelter beds in the community. We know that that need exists, and so that is the strategy that we're using to get to that. And what we're hoping to do is the Housing and Homelessness Committee, there's a subcommittee that's in charge of this work, and they're hoping to get recommendations on locations for shelter to the assembly by January, with the hope that between January and April, May timeframe, the municipality can work through those recommendations and come up with a plan for an actual permanent shelter to be opened. So that is a second, I think, aspect of work in the short term. But otherwise, I do think that the 6 items listed in code are all great places to start having a conversation around what kind of goals this board wants to set.
Thank you for that clarification and giving us some insight. I guess I just have a question. I'd like to hear from our other commission members, but first I'd like to ask the clerk if we need to take our own minutes and document our own attendance, or if this is something that will be conducted, or if that responsibility is something that will be supported by the clerk's office.
The clerk's office handles the minutes for you. And as you were asking that question, I think we probably need to swear you all in. Take an oath,
All right.
which I don't have printed.
Is it true that all commission board members have to do that, or is it just quasi-judicial? Perhaps, Mr. Chair, as the clerk prints out the oaths, perhaps we could just continue the discussion and then we can pause the discussion once the clerk is ready.
Okay, thank you. Continuing with item B, and I guess this, I'll just kind of open this up to the commission members, is I would like to hear from you what you think is something that you'd like to see as our long-term vision for this commission, knowing that we have parameters to operate within under code. I'd like to kind of open that discussion to have each person just in as succinct manner as possible, just kind of hear what your vision would be from the contributions of the commission, and then also goals that you think we ought to be setting for ourselves, both short-term and long-term. I know some probably the goals that get fleshed out as we analyze what code expects from the commission, but I guess more on an individual basis, some things that you think might be goals or even milestones that you'd like to see the commission work toward. And this probably doesn't all have to be answered here. I'd just like to hear some early comments from each of the commission members.
Well, my name is, I think I'm on, Nina Gorman. Houseless lived experience. I got to tell you, I used to be homeless for years on the streets. So I have an indication of what it looked like for me back then, what it took to get to where I am now sitting in this place. I am the director also of a temporary housing program based on helping our homeless veterans first and then all others afterwards. From my experience, when you first get somebody in, you've got to do an assessment with them. See, what do they have? Do they even have identification? But before we even get there, what building are we going to have? So, I mean, you can go on to those next things, but unless you have something in place where you can start that process, which would be case management per individual to find out what their needs are and then connect them with wraparound services in this city, that's what I would like to see. Because until people learn something different to enhance and better their life, they'll keep operating on what they know.
Awesome, thank you for that. And I just ask that anyone that makes a comment, I'll go ahead and write down what your comments are, and then I can provide these also back to the clerk too, just in case they didn't get captured in a minute.
Mr. Chair, I just want to point out that the code requires us to take action minutes. We don't take summary minutes. So we'll really only be recording your motions.
Okay.
So as you're creating your vision, it would just be your notes that you would be going off of.
All right, thank you.
Rochelle Griffiths, and I would like to share that I have a lot of insight into watching family members on the streets of Anchorage, and sadly, family members and friends pass away in their addiction. And what I'd like to see with this committee is for us to broaden our education as it comes to the people who have the lived experience. And I think they're the ones who know what they need. And then it's up to us to support them in recovery and really have a recovery education to educate the public, because not everyone knows about that or has the insight. And I think that's really important. And I am grateful to be a part of this committee. And I think it'd be great to help the people and bring back information from those who live on the streets and hear from them and see how we can help them. And a lot of them are Alaska Native, and I am from Bristol Bay. I am part Yupik Eskimo from Bristol Bay, and I have I have a heart for my people. I have a heart for all homeless people. And I think we can do a great job and do good work to help people get better. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any other advisory board members that wanted to comment?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. This is Randall Evans. I just want to say my lived experience was as a child, my family was homeless, and so my perspective is a little bit different, but I'm also a veteran and can come with that perspective. My goal coming into this was to get out into the community and talk to those experiencing homelessness, and that way I get not only my own experience but their experiences and bring those to this advisory committee. I can say that I'm a strong proponent of the Housing First initiative, because without sustainable permanent housing, it's hard to commit to anything. So I am a strong proponent of Housing First, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Robin Platt, and there are a number of facets to somebody that is homeless, and each one of us has spoke about a personal experience, and I have worked with homeless individuals and victims of various crimes. And so it's important in my mind to address each individual where they are. Sometimes people choose to be homeless, and that's a difficult thing to understand. I could give examples, I won't here, but later on I could give examples of someone I'm aware of that has chosen over and over. There's dual addictions that could be involved. And so my idea for joining this advisory board is to try to look at this, I guess, as a spoke, a wheel with all these branches, and somehow figure out a way to meet people where they are and to give assistance or provide the opportunity for them to accept assistance where they are. And maybe there could be a trust and a relationship built between the individual and the programs and the people that are there to provide assistance. And then could go from there. I wish there was a magic answer, but I think it's far more complicated than a magic answer.
Thank you, Robin. Did anyone else have any comments?
Mr. Chair, there are no other board members in attendance, so I think
Okay.
we heard from everyone.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would expect that we're probably going to have discussion on this maybe as the advisory board meets more, and this will be something that maybe in the short term ends up being a little bit of a moving target, as we understand the expectations of code, look at where the capacity of the advisory board is, and then kind of mesh that with where individually we see goals that we can kind of shape as a group and come to some agreement on. I think that'll take a little bit of time just to come together and bring those things in alignment. If there's no other comment on B, I just asked the clerk if you're ready for us for the swearing in before we go on C.
It's like you're watching on TV. Yes, I am ready. If everyone would please stand up and raise your right hands and repeat after me. I solemnly swear or affirm
I solemnly swear or affirm
Solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the
defend
United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
and the Charter of the Municipality of Anchorage,
and the Charter of the Municipality of
and the
Anchorage,
Charter of the Municipality of Anchorage,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of the Houseless Lived Experience Advisory Board
of the Houseless Lived
the
Experience
Houseless
Advisory
Lived
Board
Experience Advisory Board
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities.
And Mr. Shanigan, we will send yours through DocuSign tomorrow, and I'll have everyone else sign theirs here before they leave.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Do I keep one?
I will bring you one back.
Okay.
Do I have to sign this one too?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out that we skipped over approval of the agenda. I didn't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, we'll come, I'll start back up there as soon as.
Okay, not a problem.
So we are done signing all of our oaths, so you guys can go on with your agenda.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd just like to direct well, first, welcome aboard to all the advisory board members. I'd like to direct you back to the agenda and move to item number 3. If everybody's had a chance to review the agenda and need a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Any second
Second.
to that motion? Okay. Motion has been seconded. Any discussion? All right,
Mr.
I'll
Chair,
just call for the vote to approve. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'm not a board member, but may I speak on this item?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So there is one thing coming up that actually one sort of very concrete and specific idea that I wanted to talk with the board about, specifically regarding a series of town halls that are happening in January, specific to the clean slate strategy, and wanted to just have a conversation to see if this board was maybe interested in doing lived experience town halls, because the town halls will likely be tailored to people who are housed. So just want to have that conversation with the board.
Excellent. We can add that to new business. All right. Is there anything else anyone thought you would want to add to the agenda before we take the vote to approve it? All right. I think no other comments. We'll add this to, I guess there's no letter D, so we'll just add that as a letter D as an amendment to this agenda. Friendly amendment. We'll just go ahead and call the vote on this. Everybody that is in favor of this agenda, signify by saying aye.
Is there any objection to approving the agenda as amended? Seeing and hearing none, the agenda is approved.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. We'll jump back to item 6, and we will move on to letter C. And I know that Ms. Rivera had some comments there for dates of interest.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to let the board just give you all a broad overview of, on an annual basis, some of the things that happen in the municipality that this board might want to know about. So first, and it's actually, I think it's section 6 in the code, the budget. So the municipality handles our budget in 2 phases, in November and in April. In November, so last week we voted on the budget, and then we'll vote again in April. November is when we handled the full year budget. So last week we voted on the 2024 budget. In April is what we call the first quarter budget revisions. It's when we true up the budget, and that's when we set the mill rates. And shortly after we vote on the budget in April is when everyone gets their cards in the mail letting you know what your property taxes are. So those are the 2 dates that we have in terms of if this board wanted to provide any kind of feedback to the assembly and the mayor on budget items. Those are the dates to keep in mind. Another date is September, and I actually think it might move, and I should say month is September, and it might actually move to August. So August, September is when the assembly typically approves dollars for and starts approving contracts for emergency cold weather shelter. So this year we did that in September and October. In September we approved the money, and in October we approved the contracts, and then cold weather shelter opened up on October 16th. I think next year we're probably going to try to push it up a little bit. Maybe in August we'll approve the money, and in September we'll approve the contract so that we can make sure it gets stood up quicker than October 16th. So that's something we'll do on an annual basis. April 30th is another annual date, and that is the date where emergency cold weather shelter ends. And so whatever we stand up, so this year we have a couple hotels, we have the cold weather shelter, which is the former SWS administration building, and then we have some beds at Covenant House. some additional beds at Covenant House. Those will all close unless action is taken on April 30th. So that's another date to keep in mind every year. And then there are 2 dates where a point in time count is conducted, primarily by the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. They're the agency in charge of that. So they do that in January. January is a ridiculous time to do it, but that is the date that the federal government has set. We must do a point in time count in January. And that's when we have outreach workers and volunteers go around and essentially go out in the community and count people experiencing homelessness. And so we get a good sense, or we try to get a good sense in that one snapshot of how many people are experiencing homelessness in the community. So one of them happens in January, and then a second one typically happens sometime in the summer, like in June, July. There's an additional one that happens. So those are the annual dates that are relevant to the work of this board that I can think of at the moment. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that information. I guess while we're still on this item, are there any board members that have any dates that you'd like to, that you think might be of importance that perhaps we should look at? Might be early for us right now, but I thought maybe I'd just ask that question to advisory board. Right, if there are no comments with that, I'm going to move on to item D. And
If you'd like. Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak on this. So essentially, as I talked about earlier, we are the Housing and Homelessness Committee, and there's a subcommittee of the Housing and Homelessness Committee that is managing and spearheading the Clean State Strategy process. And that's essentially the process to get 150 new shelter beds up and running as quickly as we can. We know that that need exists. We've known for years now that that need exists to have more shelter beds in our community. So in an effort to get feedback from members of the public, there are 3 town halls that are planned in January. Now, I will say we had 3 town halls earlier in the process. This was like, when was this, in June? I forget. June, July. We had 3 town halls that basically informed the community that this was happening and let the community know some basic information about where we're heading. These 3 town halls that are coming up are all going to be about the possible locations. So the Housing and Homelessness Committee, the subcommittee, narrow down and try to get to. Here are either 10 existing buildings we can remodel or 10 vacant lots that we can build something on, or a combination of the 2. So that work is going to happen. And on January 18th, January 20th, and January 22nd, there are going to be 3 town halls held at the Wilda Marston Theater. It's the same location that we held the town halls at in this summer. And the last time we held those town halls, we had, I would say probably 99% of the people who attended those town halls are all folks who are housed. Some of them had some previous experience as unhoused individuals, but I would say the majority were housed and really didn't have any experience. And we maybe got a very small handful of folks who were currently have lived experience, so currently unhoused, who came to those town halls and spoke. But typically we don't get anyone, maybe a handful. So I wanted to see if this board was interested in the idea of having a couple of listening sessions in January, where we go to Brother Francis Shelter or the cold weather shelter, former SWS building, or the Alex Hotel or the Aviator Hotel, one of those two hotels that are currently being used for non-congregate shelter, and specifically have listening sessions to get lived experience input on the process. And this whole process we're going through now, again, is just on locations, trying to get feedback on where the community wants shelter to be, with 10 locations for the community to provide feedback on. I don't know if that's exactly what we would focus on with listening sessions with people with lived experience, but I think it would be this is an opportune time for us to have those lived experience listening sessions so we get that kind of feedback. So I wanted to open that conversation up for folks.
Awesome, thank you. I had a couple questions, Mr. Rivera. Were you thinking that if there were listening sessions, they would exist or take place before the 18th, 20th, or 22nd? Or do you also think that perhaps this group would be able to drive more individuals to the town halls, the 18th, the 20th, and 22nd? Kind of two different things there, but.
Yeah, thanks. So answering your second question first. I think it would be great if we got more people with lived experience, current lived experience at these town halls. Um, Hard for me to judge whether folks with current lived experience would feel comfortable in that space or not. Certainly, I would want to make sure that they're comfortable. But I think it would be great because one of the things that actually I think it's on the list of things that this board is responsible for is really trying to build those bridges within the community between housed community and unhoused communities. Because we're all one community in the end, got to live together. So I think that would be great. Going to your first question, if this board was interested in doing very tailored listening sessions, going to those specific locations that I mentioned earlier, I think it would be fine to do it either before or after. I think definitely we would want to have them done before January 31st, because that is when the Housing and Homelessness Subcommittee is making their final recommendations on locations to the Assembly and the administration. So get that in before the 31st.
Okay, thank you. Did any board members have comment or questions they'd like to ask, or just open up dialogue?
Yeah, this is Randall Evans. I support doing it earlier because if we're trying to, or they're trying to decide on locations to where provide services, who better to decide where those services need to be than the people that need them. So I fully support doing it earlier.
Did anyone else have comment?
This is Robin speaking. It was mentioned that we would want these folks to be comfortable in the space where the listening session could be. And I have helped out, and I have a friend who initiated. He stood on Spenard Road with a barbecue grill and cooked hot dogs, and people came by. And that's not four walls, but that they were comfortable. Now, I realize it might be a little difficult to have a formal listening session standing beside a barbecue grill, but I also have friends who have cooked a pot of chili at home and brought it and dished it out down by Fred Meyer's. It was well received, and would do it week after week after week. So there are ways. I'm not sure we can, we can invite folks to come on into a hotel. They may or may not, but it's certainly worth trying.
I appreciate those comments, and I would just add too, I like a combination of Rivera's idea to go to some of the places where people are and opening up more of a warm and I guess quieter type of a setting where dialogue can be created, but also maybe we know where we can go find individuals to talk with within our spheres of influence, maybe we can discuss on how or when to coordinate that, and what we want to elicit from these sessions, and just how we would document and how to keep track of that so that it's something we can bring back and is tangible and useful, and we can sort of have a qualitative analysis of it. I would support doing it before the 18th, giving us a little more time to bring things together and get it on paper and get it to the other committee so that they have feedback from us with enough time to make an informed decision versus getting it to them afterward, which really cuts down the time frame. And maybe if we decide that we want to do something before, maybe we could use the next few days just to look at some possible dates and times in that first part of January after the new year and see what might work, and have a plan made by middle to the end of next week. And then if we can get that, we could circulate that back out to the board members, see what you think, and then we can build a plan from that.
Yeah, that's my question, is who would coordinate these listening sessions?
Well, I think maybe we could still get a little guidance and just some of the shaping from Assemblyman Rivera, but I think we would be, as a board, making the plan, strategizing it, and then putting it into action. So it's really going to be us that drives this conversation, and I'm not sure how much involvement Mr. Rivera wants with this. He wants to be there, or kind of how this would all play out and what we would do. But maybe I just put that question to you to kind of get some feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I forgot to mention this earlier, but the operators and a third-party oversight contractor, RRS, they currently are doing weekly town halls at CWS, at Alex, and at Aviator. So last season, I went to the town halls that were held at the Sullivan when that was being used, and they were fairly well attended. And I actually learned quite a lot and got some good feedback from folks who spoke at those town halls. So I think there's already, if this board wanted to do it, there's already a natural avenue to maybe ask if we could use part of those town halls to get some feedback. And I would be happy to make those connections with you, Mr. Chair, so that you could coordinate directly with the operator and with RRS. Otherwise, I'm happy to act in whatever coordinating capacity that this board would like. Certainly, I'm interested in attending these listening sessions that the board hosts.
Mr. Chair, this is the clerk,
Excellent,
and I
thank
would
you.
just say that the clerk's office is also able to help with things like doodle polls to figure out dates that work best for the body itself. So I think we can just work together with Mr. Rivera and help you out with that.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think I don't know that we have to take a vote on this, but I do think that we should do this before January. In that early part of January, if there's anybody that doesn't think that we should do that. I guess right now would be this the time to kind of have that conversation. And once we get done with tonight's meeting, I can work with Mr. Rivera and the clerk to just get some coordinating elements together for planning this out. We can get all of this information kind of rolling and then recirculate it back out to the board members and let you know what the plan is. And perhaps we can meet one time right after the first of the year before we do any of the listening sessions to make sure that we have a fresh agenda, cover things that need to be checked down on, and we can discuss at that time how we want the sessions to kind of play out. We'll have dates set and make a plan from there.
This is Rochelle. That sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody have any last minute comments on this item? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to move on to item 7 on the agenda, member comments. I don't know if we have any in the community. I guess we're not there yet, but any other comments from our new board members? All right, hearing none, going to move on to item 8, which is audience participation. Not being present, I don't know if there's anyone in the room or if there's anyone from the public that'd like to make any comments.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Rivera would be the only member of the public here.
Okay. Mr. Rivera, did you have any other last comments that you'd like to make to the advisory board?
I do not. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, on to number 9, which is our next meeting. Madam Clerk, I guess I just put this question to you is there a frequency or a particular date or time that the meeting is structured for, or is this something that we need to determine now?
If you guys wanted to have a conversation about it amongst yourselves now, sort of timeframes during the day that work better for you, or days that work better for you, you can certainly have that conversation now. It does not need to be a specific date or time. Many of our boards and commissions meet randomly as needed. So whatever this board is looking for.
I think that I'll just kind of open this up for comments from the board members. I'd like to hear from you what kind of what your comfort zone is for time and meeting. Right now we could say we want to meet once a month for the next 3 months and sort of look at that as a frequency. If there's a date or a time that work better for advisory board members, just understanding that Tuesdays we'd need to look at what the assembly meeting schedule is. We want to avoid these meetings on Tuesdays so they don't conflict with assembly meetings in the evening. But are there any dates and times for advisory board members that look like they would be more suitable for me?
I agree that I don't know if you're just using this as an example, but once a month for the next 3 months sounds good. That way we can get our feet under us and understand what's going on. I will be traveling the week of the 3rd. No, that's November. The week of the 11th through the 15th, I'll be traveling. But other than that, I am free. So, but I do agree that once a month, at least initially, would be a good course of action.
Okay.
This is Robin. I would also think that a good opportunity once a month would be fine. Thursdays at 5 o'clock here works for me. And at this point, I don't have any solid dates that I wouldn't be available, but probably could call in if something came up and I'd have to miss actually showing up, but I could appear by phone.
Okay. What about, I was thinking maybe like the second Thursday, maybe we focus on doing the first Thursday of each month. And that would ensure that we're not conflicting with the 11th. That gives us enough time, lead time. It's January. Would January 4th, Thursday, January 4th, 2024, be a date that works for everyone? And 5 might be a little early for some. If we said 5:30, is there a way that that works, or is that still a little early? Maybe I get hear from some of the other board members.
5:30 is fine with me. And those dates will also work.
I can handle 5:30 as well.
I don't see any objections in the room.
Okay. All right, so let's set that for our next meeting date. It'll be Thursday, January 4th at 5:30 p.m. And before then, we'll make sure that we're circulating information and just doing some coordination. Madam Clerk, just a question on the agenda. Do I just submit an agenda to you, or do we produce the agenda and actually just give it to you, or do we how do we generate that?
Yeah, the staffer that's assigned to this board will email you the agenda and work with you on the agenda. And so then you and the staffer would have the opportunity to set the agenda. And then just to avoid Open Meetings Act, I would encourage you guys not to ever email the entire group of you. You can only speak to one other board member about a particular topic at a time unless you're in a public meeting. So if you have a topic that you would like to see on the agenda, I would encourage you to just email it directly to Mr. Shanigan so that he can work with the clerk or the staffer to the board to set the agenda. And I think I heard January 4th at 5:30, and then the first Thursday of February at 5:30 and the first Thursday of March at 5:30. Was that where you guys settled on your next 3 meetings?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's just look here. Yeah, the first Thursday of February is the 1st, and the first Thursday of March is the 7th. And what we'll do, just to make sure that we're adhering to Open Meeting Act, if there is information to be circulated to all the board members, I'll make sure that that comes through the staff first, and you'll see anything that we kind of coordinate over the next week or so, just getting additional details and work with Mr. Rivera. We'll make sure that that information is disseminated through the staffer for the board. And but if you have things that you want to see for the agenda or suggestions, if you want to send it to me, then I'll work with the staff person to getting that on the agenda.
All right. To support that, if we kind of talked about coordinating for the information sessions with the shelters. If a date is just set and then sent out, I'll just make sure I can make that date some other way. So I just don't see how we could coordinate via email for those sessions.
All right, thank you for that. And if there's a time when maybe the only way that you can attend is via phone, so we can meet quorum, I appreciate the access to this today as in northern Canada, just for work and Northwest Territories.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, specifically regarding coordination of any dates of listening sessions, and I'll ask the clerk, but I believe the clerk may be able to help with coordination of that with board members.
Yeah, we can. Just if Mr. Rivera knows of dates, or I think you mentioned the RRS was kind of naturally doing some weekly, I can send those dates out, and then we could do a doodle poll if we wanted to if you all wanted to go at the same time, as to which one you wanted to go to, and then we could find the one that the most members could attend that way. But that is something that the staff can handle for you guys.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have our next meeting and have the next three. And the location will be the same.
Correct.
All right. Seeing how we're moved on to number 10, I just need a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Oh, that's a motion, and it's been seconded.
Parking
All right,
meter.
so this meeting will be adjourned at 6:22 p.m. And we'll see everybody on in January, except through email correspondence. Next,
Great. Thanks, Terrence.
thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
For folks in the
All right,
room,
have a good night.
you too, Terrence. For folks in the room, if you parked in the parking lot,